welcome to this edition of the Research Files. I'm Gary Waddell. Tonight we'll talk about the upcoming TEDx event here at UNLV, what it's really like to live in Las Vegas, the drought in the American Southwest, and student access to and success in higher education. We've got a lot to get to tonight, so let's meet our first guest. Joining us now is GeoScience professor Matthew Lachniet. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, your research is in, let me get this right, paleoclimatology, stable isotope and geochemistry, and geochronology. I could kind of work out definitions of those words, sort of, but I don't really know what you're doing. Tell me what you're doing.
Well, I'll get to the important parts. Paleoclimatology is the study of past climates.
Right.
And what we're interested in doing is extending our record of past climate variations beyond the instrumental record, where thermometers only go back 150 years. We try to take that back hundreds more, thousands more, hundreds of thousands more years back into the past.
How do you do that?
I use what are called cave deposits, and those grow upward over time in places like Lehman Caves in Nevada or elsewhere. And we can measure the differences in the chemistry of those deposits over time, and they tell us how climate has changed when you have warm periods and cold periods and wet periods and dry periods.
How does knowing that affect us? I mean, what good does that do us in our current climate situation?
Well, one of the biggest questions we have is, what is nature capable of doing in a place like the Great Basin in southern Nevada? Can it be even drier than today? And what we've been finding is the answer to that question is absolutely yes. It can be both wetter and drier, and we need to understand those previous dry intervals to know what nature's capable of doing in the future once temperatures start to rise.
We've been in a drought for I don't know how many years now here in southern Nevada. I go out to Lake Mead occasionally, and it's down 100 and some feet from where it was in the early 80s. I mean, obviously there's not a lot we can do about that, but we can sort of learn. Are you trying to learn kind of why all of this is going on?
Yeah, we're interested in knowing the why, but also having some past analogs that we can use to try to understand what's happening into the future for things like drought. And drought is really the most salient feature of climate change here in the Southwest. So we've been in a 12-year-long drought. Some of our data shows that the droughts have extended up to 50 or 100 years in the past. And we have to be able to plan for that eventuality in the future.
Is there a way for us to survive if it lasts 50 years?
Sure there is, and that's a question for policy of water resource allocation more than it is a question of climate change.
The La Nina, El Nino that we're going through this winter, maybe a La Nina this summer, I'm not sure, but the El Nino, what does that do to us here in southern Nevada?
Well, typically El Nino events produce wetter winters, and that results in filling the reservoirs like Lake Mead and Lake Powell. For some reason, that's not happening this winter. It's actually been slightly below average in southern Nevada, so we're not making a lot of headway in terms of filling Lake Mead and some of the other reservoirs on the Colorado River drainage basin. However, normally that means wetter than average.
We need rain, we need snow in the Western Rockies.
Yeah, we need snow in the Western
else?
Rockies for many years, really, to bring us back up to where we were the last time Lake Mead was overflowing in 1998.
You work here in the Southwest. You also work in Central America and some of the tropical climates down there. I think of when they figure out climate change and what winters were like and all that, taking the core sample out of the ice, not really something you can do in southern Nevada or in, El Salvador, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. We do look to places like that have ice for ice cores to do this type of work. Because there's not ice here in Nevada, we need to find different sources of information, what we call proxies. And the cave deposits fill that need for a place like southern Nevada where there's not ice, where there's not marine sediments, where there's not lake sediments that we can generate those longer records from.
So the best way is the caves is because they're undisturbed?
That's typically the case, and they grow material over thousands to tens of thousands of years that give us a very long record of past climate changes.
Wow. I know I've seen Lehman Caves, and I've been in some of the others, but I never thought really that this was going to be discovering our past and predicting our future.
Yeah, that's right. That's why they're very useful, and we have been working in a cave in the new Great Basin National Monument, which is really showing us some of the very interesting results over the last 10,000 years or so that show that Nevada has experienced even drier climates than what we're existing in today.
Wow. Matt, well, not terribly cheery, but at least keep up the good work.
Okay.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We don't want you to go away. When we come back, we will talk with Magdalena Martinez. Stay with us.
Lazy bones, loping through the day. You always seem to find the easy way, moving like you're rolling away. Never heard a word I say.
All over America, entire families are backsliding. We're no longer just sedentary, we're stationary, and that's bad news for your bones. At any age, bones need weight-bearing activity to grow strong and stay strong. So go outside, take the steps, play with the dog. Just get up, get out, get moving.
Never keep your bones that way. Never heard a word I say.
A public service message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons.
Welcome back. Our next guest is Magdalena Martinez. She is Director of Education Programs with the Lincy Institute. You're a local person. You graduated from high school here, went to UNLV here, and then went off to conquer the world, and you're back. Tell us about what you did in the time you left us and what you're doing now.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here today.
You're welcome.
So I'm a graduate of UNLV. I received my degree in business here and went off to Harvard University to obtain my master's in education administration, planning and social policy, and still had the bug to go to graduate school. So came back, worked a few years here, and then went to the University of Michigan. What brought me back? So with a PhD, there are many opportunities, and in fact, I defended right in the heart of the recession. But I made a conscious decision to stay in Southern Nevada because I felt that if people like me who had invested so much in this community didn't stay, then how do we expect other people that are not a part of this community to stay? So I made a conscious decision to stay here and really put my skill set to work to help solve real problems that our community is facing, particularly as it relates to educational issues.
What a great way to say that. That's wonderful.
Thank
I
you.
agree with you. Tell me a little about the Lincy Institute. It was started, Kirk Kerkorian started it, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So the Lincy Institute is a fairly new research institute here at UNLV. And the purpose of the Lincy Institute is really to look at 4 core areas, education being one of them, health services, social services, and technology, the other 3 areas. I have wonderful colleagues that I work with that focus in those areas. I focus primarily in education, and my portfolio actually includes looking at K-12 and higher education, not just K-12. When people think about educational researchers, they often think about K-12.
Right.
But my focus really is also those critical transitions from high school to the university, and particularly for our most underrepresented populations. So the role of the Lincy Institute really is to conduct meaningful research that is relevant and timely for our community so that we can expand the discourse, particularly as it relates to public policy making, beyond the few select, right? So a lot of the work that I do is doing research that is specific to Southern Nevada. And it's been a wonderful experience, a very unique experience, and I think one that is fitted well with the university that's up and coming, particularly at UNLV.
The jump from high school to college, even for the best students, is the toughest probably of all, right?
Absolutely. In fact, Southern Nevada, or Nevada as a whole, has one of the lowest college going rates in the nation, sadly. And
You're
so
going to change that.
I hope so. With the research that I've been collecting, oftentimes you hear it's said here that Southern Nevada just doesn't have a college-going culture. Parents don't value education. And I thought that was a good empirical question. So I'm putting that to test. And I, along with several other colleagues from other universities in the area, and practitioners who are actually doing frontline work have been collecting survey data for about 4 years from some of our most hardest hit schools, high schools, and asking kids, what are your aspirations? Who influences you? Do you feel you have the support you need at school, at home? And those survey results are very interesting, and we're hoping to share those through a series of white papers and perhaps even some community convenings in the future.
I look forward to seeing that. You're part of the Nevada Consortium for Teacher Pipeline. What is that?
So what that is I primarily serve as a facilitator, and it was really spearheaded by two individuals, our dean here, Kim Metcalf at the College of Education, and a community member that was with Teach for America, or still with Teach for America. And really the idea was that we knew that Nevada as a whole, in particular Southern Nevada, was experiencing a teacher shortage. And so what the consortium does is bring a number of stakeholders together to really problem solve and to really expand the discourse around what we can do around the teacher pipeline. And I'll give you an example. So we have been meeting for about almost 2 years, and it was initiated right before the legislative session. And so as a collective, the group came together and identified key policy recommendations they could present to the legislators during the last legislative session. And so my role really has been one as a facilitator, knowing educational issues nationally and then locally, and helping to people coalesce around key areas.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I look forward to that one as well. It will be very interesting to see all of that and your recommendations to the legislature.
Thank you.
Magdalena, thank you very much. We'll be right back with our next guest right after this.
Where are you headed?
Just gonna hang out.
It's a school night. With Gary and Todd?
Yeah?
Not sure about those two. I've been meaning to ask you. This is tougher than I thought. Is there any drinking going on in this crowd?
No.
I hope not, because alcohol can lead you to say things and do things that you really wish you hadn't. Isn't this what you're supposed to say?
I know.
So if any of your buddies ever pressure you to take a drink, just tell them you promised your dad you wouldn't. I'd do anything to keep you safe.
Okay, I will.
I hope this is working.
I promise. Love you too, Dad.
They really do hear you.
Ryan.
Yeah?
So start the conversation even before they're teenagers.
Good idea.
For tips on what to say, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
I remember the moment clearly,
I'll never forget that moment.
as long as I live.
I realized at that moment, when we first saw the damage, these people really needed us. And I was going to make a difference, right here in my community. Together with local responders, we cleared trees and collapsed walls. We had to get to the family trapped beneath. As a citizen soldier, I made a difference.
Be there for your community at NationalGuard.com.
Welcome back. Our next guest is Associate Professor of Sociology, Christie Batson. You are a social demographer. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you did.
And you do research on immigrant adaptation to Southern Nevada. Exactly what are you finding and why is this important?
When I moved here in 2007, I was continuing a line of research looking at immigrant adaptation, specifically focusing on Hispanic immigrant adaptation. And my focus has primarily been examining second and third generation, the children and grandchildren of immigrants, and how they assimilate into mainstream American society. And I've focused specifically on looking at fertility patterns and patterns of interracial and interethnic marriage and occupational mobility. And for the most part, immigrants, Hispanic immigrants, assimilate in mainstream patterns consistent with most adaptation research. But in recent years, some of my research has shown a pattern of ethnic resilience, where immigrants, particularly those who live in large metropolitan cities that have large immigrant communities, cities with ethnic enclaves, that in those types of communities we're seeing a slowdown process of assimilation, and in some cases assimilation patterns that just aren't existing in the same way anymore.
Wow. You've done a lot of your research here. Is Las Vegas the same way?
Las Vegas is the same way. We have a large immigrant population. We have a very large immigrant community. We have ethnic neighborhoods in Las Vegas. And so the patterns in Las Vegas have been consistent with patterns in other cities similar to Las Vegas, and we are seeing some emergence of ethnic resilience among immigrant communities in large spaces.
Has this been true for other immigrant populations over the years, the Irish in New York, thinking of things like that? I mean, maybe it's not a question I should have asked you
no,
here,
in most of those,
in
most of those cases, assimilation, there was not an alternative to assimilation, and so assimilation was the mainstream norm at the time, because you couldn't live in a city and not adapt to that city's culture. Today, you can live in parts of a city, you can live in an ethnic enclave in particular cities like San Francisco or New York City, and not necessarily need to have English language skills to make it through the city, not necessarily need to have the same educational patterns or the same occupational patterns as if you picked yourself up and moved into a rural place in the United States where language was a much harder barrier.
What about the police connection here? You're part of the Las Vegas Police Social Survey and also the Las Vegas Smart Policing Initiative. What are those?
So a few years ago, I partnered with some senior colleagues in my department, and we were interested in trying to understand community and community quality of life in Las Vegas. And surprisingly, there wasn't a large survey in Las Vegas that had been conducted to study social issues of residents in Las Vegas. So we decided to create the Las Vegas Metropolitan Area Social Survey, and it's a neighborhood-based study. We studied 22 neighborhoods in Las Vegas and surveyed residents that lived within those neighborhoods. And we asked them questions about neighborhood satisfaction, neighborhood quality of life. If you preferred to live somewhere else, would you stay in your current home? Would you move? Would you leave Las Vegas? Would you leave Nevada? We also asked important questions about environmental awareness, water, air quality, and who Las Vegans trust for their information. Do they trust scientists? Do they trust the media? Do they trust their coworkers?
Yeah.
And so it was the first large-scale social survey conducted in Las Vegas, and we're trying to revamp it to do a second wave at the moment.
Are you going to see this make a difference? I mean, is this going to come out and make changes?
We hope so. What we found, we sort of have found a dichotomy in our work. So in many ways, Las Vegas residents are not unlike other residents in other cities. We still want to go home at night. We still want to be safe in our neighborhoods. We still actually want to know our neighbors, and we still appreciate the neighborhood space as a very integral part of our life. But Las Vegas is a unique city, and so we have barriers to forming relationships at the neighborhood level that are unique to Las Vegas that don't exist in other cities. So we're a 24-hour town, which means that your neighbors are always working different shifts, and you might not see them as often as you might see your neighbors in other cities. We have environmental barriers to our architecture that inhibit social connectedness in our neighborhoods, right? We have concrete walls, garages, no driveways, no front yards, narrow streets. And so all of these things in combination work to isolate us in ways and create this myth that Las Vegans aren't neighborly. But through our work, we found that Las Vegans, we want to know our neighbors. We just have some barriers to that.
Real quick, you have 10 seconds. Who do they trust?
Who do they trust for their
Yeah.
information? They
Yeah.
trust scientists.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
that's
that's
nice
good.
That's,
That's good
for
for
you.
me.
That's good. All right. Thank you very much.
You're
I really
welcome.
appreciate it, Christie. Well, we will be right back after this. Stay with us.
If you keep tanning, indoors or out, the effects of harmful rays will show up on your skin. Wrinkles, age spots, and an increased risk of skin cancer, including melanoma, the deadliest form of skin cancer, and the second most common cancer in women 15 to 29. Stop tanning. Time may not be on your side. Learn how to protect your skin at spotskincancer.org. A message from the American Academy of Dermatology.
Drownings are a leading cause of death for young children. Simple safety steps are the best way to prevent these tragedies. Make sure kids learn how to swim. Always watch them in and around water. Properly fence all pools and stay away from drains. Consider the steps you take, then add a few more. Because you never know which pool safety step will save a life until it does. Simple steps save lives. To learn some new ones, visit poolsafely.gov.
Our guest this evening is David Waldman. He is assistant professor in the Department of Film here at UNLV. I know you had a successful career in film. You're now back here at UNLV. Why did you decide to join UNLV and not make it, become the next Scorsese in Hollywood?
Well, I'm actually still a working cinematographer.
Oh, good.
I still get out there and practice what I know. When my wife and I had kids, I kind of slowed down a little bit, stopped traveling for work quite as much. So I've always enjoyed giving back, teaching. So I came from USC and AFI, and an opportunity opened at UNL.
Very good.
Opportunity opened up here. I took it. Yeah.
You refer to yourself as a format agnostic storyteller.
Yeah. What
do you mean by that?
So that's a good question. There's a lot of politicization with the media that we shoot on. I was trained on 35 millimeter motion picture emulsion.
Mm-hmm.
Right as I was coming out of graduate school, high definition acquisition became a thing. And these days, the medium that you shoot on tends to indicate something about the quality of your work.
Uh-huh.
I have a business card that says format agnostic, meaning we'll pick the right thing for the right project.
I saw the Quentin Tarantino movie in 70 millimeter.
Yeah.
In 70 millimeter.
As did I. Yeah.
It was it was fantastic.
Yeah.
It probably wouldn't have been the same on video, although it did show in some places in video.
Exactly. That's a good question. I think the majority of that movie, since it was interior, probably would have done okay.
Would it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
it was just the
one
deal,
guy's opinion.
the big deal of it. All
I
right.
loved seeing it in 70, though. It was really great. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about TEDx.
Yes, sir.
TEDx is what?
TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, Design. TED's a nonprofit out of New York City.
Mm-hmm.
They hold conferences throughout the year, probably 4 or 5 major conferences throughout the year, where they bring together leaders in each of those areas and others, education, things like that. And their tagline is "Ideas worth spreading." So they bring together these people in a conference setting and they have them present their big ideas. Not so much selling products from the stage or anything like that, but more why their idea is worth spreading. And the X in TEDx indicates that the event is locally produced and locally organized.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were part of the first one here.
Yeah.
And now you're going to be the director of the second one?
Oh, I'm just a faculty advisor.
Faculty
yeah,
advisor
I'm a
of the
faculty
second one.
advisor of the second one. Yeah.
So big names coming here?
Well, we have we have a good group of speakers, actually. We have 19 slots, 15 of whom will be speaking. 3 of those will be performance. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. We've got about 50% of them are from out of state, 50% from in-state, many of those from the UNLV community. The subjects range from the economics of local food to the grammar of visual data to intersex people. There's a lot of variation.
This one's going to be bigger and better than the last one here?
It is going to be bigger. Yeah, it's going to be a little bigger. We have seating for about 180 people. We're doing it in the Black Box Theater. The event's happening on Friday, April 8th, from about 8:30 in the morning till 4 p.m.
It is, okay, the Black Box Theater is where?
On campus. It's in the theater complex.
Okay. And it's open to the public?
It is, yeah.
Do you have to get tickets in advance, or you better?
Advisable. Of those 180 tickets, I think we have maybe a quarter of those left at this point.
Oh, wow.
But tickets can be found at the TEDxUNLV.com website through the PAC.
All right. It sounds very exciting. I've seen the TED Talks.
Yeah.
I've not seen this. There's a difference between the two?
There isn't, actually.
Really?
The format's the same, yeah. It's somebody, an expert, somebody who's passionate about whatever they're speaking about, standing on stage and telling people why it's important.
These are not panel discussions.
They're not.
Individual presentations.
No, these are TED Talks. These are, the format is exactly like the TED Talks that you're referring to, yeah.
Well, those are fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's an awful lot of people here who are very good and have ideas for this.
Yeah, their ideas are worth spreading.
We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
I'll find
Appreciate
me a
the time.
ticket somewhere along the way.
Yeah, TEDx.com.
Thank you very much.
TEDxUNLV.com.
I really appreciate it, David. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
Come and see us again. Let us know how it went.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
That's all we have for you tonight. We hope you will join us next time on Research Files. I'm Gary Waddell. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.